Okay. Great talk, MJ.
Thank you.
Super. Love it. A couple of things. One is all these indicators that you've listed, and you probably have other ones as well that you're, anyway, there's ways to capture that data, but some of these indicators suggest the need for a broader data infrastructure strategy that maybe doesn't even exist in Canada. And I wonder what your thoughts are around developing that data infrastructure, who should develop it, et cetera, et cetera. That's one question. The other question I had was around legalization and the effect on education. You saw like an improvement in grades or an improvement in, and it's interesting because I remember, and details are a bit fuzzy in my mind, but I remember seeing a Dutch study where they did sort of this ABA experiment, natural experiment, where they basically didn't allow certain people from other countries to come and access cannabis. These are university students, and so before that, their grades were in the in the pits, and then they stopped, and then the grades shot up, right, like crazy, and then so there's this natural experiment where you actually show the opposite in a sense.
Yeah.
And my last, as if that wasn't enough, yeah, I'm sorry.
I put him on the spot, so you have to have an introduction.
The last one is around, so you have the indicators. What about the definitions of, like, the terminology on these indicators, right? So that's another whole aspect of, the indicator work that I think needs some thinking.
Yeah, and I agree completely, and thank you for the comments, and certainly thank you for your leadership in getting us to this spot. I think that our hope with the report is to prevent sort of the evidence base as it exists now in the literature, but not to be the final word. And I think it's important to recognize that, and I think it's important, and in the report we do go to quite lengths trying to identify where sources of this data might be, but operationalizing, obviously, cannabis use and other sorts of things is still important work that needs to be done. We are fortunate, as I mentioned, that there is a lot of good national level and even provincial level data for a lot of these indicators. For some, there is not. And so therefore, I think that there are a lot of opportunities to try and engage in that work, to try and come up with new sources of data. I think we're fortunate also to be living in an era where these sorts of measures and this sort of analytic capture is really increasing exponentially. And I think that there's an opportunity here for online work, for respondent-driven sampling, for these sorts of techniques to get us away from the let's call 20,000 Canadians and hear what they have to say. Which is a valuable exercise, and it certainly allows us to compare with past results. But I think that there are probably better ways of building that data, and therefore better ways, as you suggest, of having an infrastructure. There are a number of areas in the U.S. that have tried to pioneer some of that stuff, and I think we should be looking there as well as our own ideas.
You ducked the question about why university education got worse in some studies,
yes, sorry, no,
unless you really feel like you want to take it. But I'm curious to know what you think.
About university education?
Yeah, but how some studies showed it looked like improvement in education associated, and others are suggesting that. Do you think this is a proxy for something else going on?
No, I don't think we've done the rigorous work necessary to find an answer to this. I think that we've seen changes, we've seen differences, but I would hesitate to call them causal.